And joining us for more on the perspective of the government are two persons who've been very closely associated with the process of writing of this particular budget. One is, of course, the CEA, or the Chief Economic Advisor, Anantha Nageswaran. Also with us is Sanjay Malhotra, who's the Revenue Secretary of India. Let me start first and foremost with you, Mr. Nageswaran. Let me ask you that with this budget, do you think that the big elephant in the room about jobs has been addressed once and for all?
Indeed, it has been quite effectively addressed because the three comprehensive schemes combined with the internship program, all four of them, and also the educational loans for people who have not yet availed of a loan. If you take all these five schemes together, then I think the impact on employment creation in the coming years is bound to be significant, because schemes target first-time job seekers, people who are looking for additional jobs, and it also covers both the mid-size and large enterprises who have more than 1,000 employees on their rolls. And if they add 50 employees or a percentage of the existing workforce, whichever is lower, they also become eligible for the subsidies. And Scheme B, and some of these schemes allow the benefits to accrue over a period of 4 years, keeping the incentives going. So I think from the perspective of job seekers, these three schemes together will have a very noticeable impact on the job creation in the Indian economy in the coming years.
I'd also like to go across to Mr. Sanjay Malhotra, who's the Revenue Secretary. Sir, there's been some amount of criticism with regard to the increase as far as the capital gains tax is concerned, with the removal of indexation in particular. So is this budget in that sense a letdown for long-term investors or the asset-owning class?
No, not at all. See, first of all, this LTCG, the indexation that was allowed for the real estate, while that has been removed, the tax rate has substantially gone down from 20% to 12%. And I may give you an example. Right now, while I was doing the rounds, various interviews, one of the journalists told me asked me, the same question. And he said that, well, for me, it's a big loss. I said, how? When did you buy the property? He said, in 2005. I bought this property in 2005 for 20 lakh rupees. I asked him, how much is it today? He said, 2 crore rupees. This is live, real example I am giving you. And so I said, okay, let me see, what is the indexation benefit you get. So the indexation benefit is about 3 times. Because it's there on my mobile, I immediately calculated it. So it becomes 20 lakh, cost becomes 60 lakh. So you pay a tax on now 1 crore and 40 lakhs, which is less. But it's at a high rate of 20%. So it becomes 28 lakhs. I said, okay, now in the new tax regime for LTCG, how much are you going to pay? So he said, I am going to pay on 1 crore and 80 lakhs, because 2 crore minus 20 lakhs is 1 crore 80 lakhs. But you are going to pay only 12.5%. He calculates it's 22.5 lakh. So he stands to gain 5.5 lakh rupees. How is it disadvantageous to him? And so, to your viewers, I would like to inform everyone that wherever, they are having gains over long periods of time, the indexation actually, doesn't move up the cost as much. While, the returns are much significantly more, which get taxed at a much lower rate of 12.5% than at 20% in the existing regime. So for most of those who are in the real estate, they are going to get a benefit. But more so, I would also like to say that this is a move towards simplification. Because you are aware that various asset classes today, before today, had multiple rates, 20% with indexation, 10%, multiple holding rates, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, applicable rate in some cases. So it was creating a lot of complication, a lot of confusion, and some disputes also. And so, as has been the philosophy of our government, to move towards simple taxation, be it indirect taxes, starting with GST, or in customs with, the reduction in number of rates, tax rates that we did, last year, and an announcement has again been made to do the same over the next 6 months, or whether it is income tax in the form of taxation regimes, both for corporate tax and personal income tax, for without, in exemptions and deductions. This is more a move towards simplification and rationalization, and at the same time, I would like to allay fears of those who are in real estate,
right,
that this is not really an increase for most of them.
Right. Also, Mr. Nageswaran, I don't know if you've seen the kind of commentary that's surrounding this LTCG and, on the comments that are coming in post the budget, because there's all sorts of speculation that's out there, particularly on social media, that those who are saying that is this some kind of form of bringing through the backdoor inheritance tax, because concerns have been raised on the same. How would you respond, sir?
No. I mean, first of all, the government did not breathe a word about inheritance tax or anything in this budget. So some of this speculation. See, I think there is a tendency to sort of quickly jump on to conclusions based on itemized anecdotal examples. And I think the example that Sanjay gave of 20 lakhs being indexed to 60 and then calculating the capital gains tax under the old regime, and then in the new regime without indexation, the net benefit to the concerned house owner was about 5.5 lakhs. So you can take another example and show that in some cases where the property went up only by 5 times, from 20 lakhs to 1 crore over the last 19 years, then you might say that, well, in the old regime, he would have paid a tax of only about 8 lakhs. Under the new regime, he would pay a tax of 10 lakhs. So the important thing is, depending on the kind of real estate asset gains, and if it happens to be more than 10% per annum, then actually the taxpayer benefits. And by and large, real estate asset as a class in the country has delivered returns of more than 10% per annum in nominal terms. So therefore, in those cases, this new tax regime actually benefits the asset owner rather than creating more tax liability on him or her. So now, as far as the speculation about inheritance tax, etc. are concerned, there is no basis to them.
Right.
Yeah, and I may also add that, if the house that is sold, the proceeds thereof are reinvested again in a house, there is no tax. So right, we are continuing, with the old rolling over benefits, as we call them, that you reinvest those gains in a house, or you invest in, some of these bonds, the Section 54 EC bonds that institutions like PFC and REC float from time to time. Then these gains are not taxed.
Right.
We have not taken away, those rolling over benefits.
Okay, but Mr. Malhotra, as far as the changes in the various tax slabs in the new regime are concerned, about 17,500 rupees will be saved for about 4 crore people. Now, what many are looking at is the fact that there is no relaxation in the topmost slab, that is those who are earning 15 lakhs plus. Perhaps if that slab had also been opened up, you could have brought in relief to a lot more people, is a question that many are asking. How do you view this?
So I may say, that this changes which have been brought about by this finance bill and announced by the Honorable Finance Minister should be viewed in continuity with the changes that were brought about just the previous year in the new tax regime, where the highest tax slab was increased vis-a-vis, the old tax regime to 15 lakh rupees. Earlier, there were hardly anyone, in the old tax regime, in the new tax regime, where the maximum limit where the limit for 30% started at 10 lakh. So from 10 lakh, already, we were already at 15 lakh last year. So, and a benefit of up to about 37,500 rupees were given over there. And moreover, this benefit, by changing the tax slab of 3 to 6 lakh and 6 to 9 lakh, to 3 to 7 lakh and 7 to 10 lakh, etc., benefits even those who are in the tax slab above 15 lakh. All
Right.
those who are having incomes above 7 lakh or so stand to gain with this with the changes that have been announced.
All right. Let me put this question across to Mr. Nageswaran. There was a feeling during previous budgets that perhaps the middle class concerns have not been addressed. With rates being lowered in the new tax slab, do you think that this budget addresses those middle class concerns?
No, I think as Sanjay pointed out in his response to your earlier last question, this is a continuing exercise. I mean, if you notice over the years, under the old regime, the 30% tax rate kicked in at income about 10 lakhs. Now it is at 15 lakhs and above, and the standard deduction for salary taxpayers has gone up, and also the slabs have been widened in the lower tax brackets, which obviously will also benefit upper income earners because your tax rates will be calculated at different rates. So in some sense, this is a continuing exercise, and the middle class, with the government supporting job creation, it leads to income growth as well as a rise in spending power, etc. And even the indexation that you asked about in great detail earlier is obviously benefiting those asset owners who have an appreciation of at least 10% per annum in their real estate, in their property values. And then people who are investing in other asset classes, unlisted shares, private equity, venture capital, etc., those kind of assets also now will be taxed at a lower rate, and that gives a boost to the startup ecosystem, and also that benefits the middle class because many of them are now wanting to become entrepreneurial as well. And lastly, let me also say that while people look at some of these things narrowly and say that, this benefit, this hurts, etc., I can understand that. But in general, the conservatism and the prudence with which fiscal policy has been pursued over the last 5 years plus has indeed played a very big role in the kind of asset returns that Indian stocks have created. Without the policy stability, without the macroeconomic prudence that has been on display since 2020, the Indian stock market wouldn't have had the kind of performance that it has had. In some sense, when we say that tax rates were cut for corporates in 2019, but not for individual taxpayers, etc., individual taxpayers have probably seen more incremental tax reliefs, but more importantly, the recovery in the stock market since 2020 and the gain of more than 4x and the widespread retail participation in the stock market who have benefited from the asset price increase in the stock markets, etc., is built on the foundation of prudent macroeconomic policies, including fiscal policy. So It is not correct to say that the fiscal policies are hurting the middle class. The fiscal policies have helped the middle class through asset price gains in the last 4 years, precisely because it has been prudent and calibrated and careful.
All right, Mr. V. Anantha Nageswaran and, of course, Mr. Sanjay Malhotra, I'd like to thank both of you for joining us this evening and sharing with us very candidly your insights as far as this budget that has been presented in Parliament is concerned. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're watching the News Hour at 10.